Okay. Can everybody hear me? See my pretty little screen? So today, I think I'm going to be doing some watercolor. So I'm going to get everything all ready, get some water with my little spray bottle, water for my brushes, and I've got all of my brushes and things right here. Okay. Get ready to paint. So first things first, I'm gonna get everything all set up and ready to go. But we'll see what we can make happen. So I kind of want to do some work with like a landscape, I believe. Maybe something abstract. And we'll go from there and just see what comes out of my imagination. So I'll start off trying to sketch out some stuff. Let me make sure that's clean. Okay. Just getting an idea for where to put some of the main pieces of the composition. Like a slightly distracted stream, so I may not see people chatting, but we'll see. Okay. Most of this will like be covered up by the paint, but it's just trying to get an idea for like where I want elements of the painting. Okay. Let's have an idea of where to go. Okay. I have a fairly good idea of like where some of our elements are. Okay. It might be a little too bright to see, so I'm gonna like turn down the brightness, I think. Where did I set that? 1 second. See if I can't make this a little bit easier on the eyes and a little bit easier to see. Also, like, it may not be fully focusing. We'll see. 1 sec. Okay. Let's see. Is that a bit better? I might need to turn up the brightness a little bit on this. Like, are you gonna focus here? See if it will. Okay. Will you focus on my hand? Okay. I think that's okay. We'll see how it goes. And if we need to make adjustments, we always can. So first things first, I am going to spray down the paper. Now I've already pre-stretched this earlier. It did dry out, but hopefully this will prevent the paper from having curling, which if you've ever done watercolors, you know that's kind of like a big issue. Sometimes curling occurs. Okay. And I'm just going to take my large brush and make sure that it's kind of like even. And I might need to work a little bit quicker than I am right now, just to make sure this stays wet. Okay. And I'm going to spray my watercolors. So this will get them started and able to be mixed better. And that way we can go ahead and start emulsifying the colors that I need to use. So I'm going to set this big brush down, and I am going to pull out a round brush, which is typically what I use for most of my painting. And we're just going to mix up a couple of things. So first off, I don't know if you can see this, we're going to mix a couple of colors. So I need blue, and I need a little bit of water on my brush for this. And a lot more water. Okay. Rinse it off real quick. Get some fresh water on there. And I am going to go for some of this green over here. And get that in there. Okay, that's a nice like blue-green color. And I'm actually going to get a bit more water and dilute that. Okay. And I am going to get like a kind of brownish green color going up here with like this mustard yellow. And a little bit more of this green. Okay. And then I need a little bit of purple. So I'm going to come up to like this color. It's kind of like a maroon purple color, and I'm going to put this here. And we are going to mix this with a little bit of brown. And a little bit of this brown as well. We're going to get that nice and dilute as well. So these are going to be like kind of my base colors. Just kind of start with. So real quick, spray down my paper again. And I dropped my spray bottle, y'all. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so pre-stretching my paper didn't quite work out the way I had intended. That's okay. So we're going to go for a little bit of this. I'm just going to come in to the darker parts of these bushes. And I'm going to come in with some of this green. And you see this feathering is, my paper is a bit too wet for what I'm trying to do. But that's okay. We can always take some of this napkin that we have here and just blot it to kind of pick up some of this water. There we go. Okay. Now, the trick with watercolors is you kind of want to be light with your first wash and then move darker. So this is just kind of like my first go at laying down color for these basic shapes. Wipe my brush. Okay. Now that we've got that, wipe my palette. I'm actually going to start over with some other colors. So, need to make some new shades here. I'm going to go in with some of this light blue. See, it's a little too runny there, but let's get a little bit more. Let's get some of this as well. That should be a good wash. Okay. Now I need to go for some of this gold color. Nice golden yellow. Get some more water in that, because that one's a bit thick. And now what I really need in this is just a spot of this like lemony, limey color. It's a light color one. There we go. More water. Okay. And I need some of this purple. It's a bit dark. Let's add a lot more water to that. Okay. There we go. Okay. So, and now we're just going to kind of fill in some of the background. I'm just going to kind of leave the tree by itself, because I'm going to do that a little bit later. Okay, I need some more of this like skyish blue. Okay. Now what I need to do is kind of give this just a spritz. And this is a base layer. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. Maybe some more of this blue. And it's getting a bit dry already. Just kind of go over it. Y'all didn't know this is like the first time I've tried to paint anything on a stream, so we'll see how it goes. Normally I'm doing this a little bit differently and at my own pace, so it's definitely an experience for me painting on stream. Okay. What I might do is once I've finished laying down kind of these base colors here, I might go to the stream starting soon screen and use the blow dryer to get this dry for the next layer. Because blow dryers are kind of loud, so I don't want to deafen anybody. Okay, so now for the water, and water reflects what is around it. So a couple of things need to happen, right? So we gotta make some stuff here. So, a couple of things going here. Okay. Now, typically, what you do with this is you want to let it dry for the first layer, and then go from there. Okay, so that said, I'm going to wash off this brush wipe down the artboard over the excess water, palette of the excess paint that is not needed right now. And I am going to mute y'all while I get the hair dryer. So, give me just a moment, and we will be. Okay, we're back. Sorry about the pause. I had to do that for the noise levels. So I know it doesn't really look like much right now. But what we're going to do, I am actually going to peel up my tape. Okay. I can, there we go. So remember how I said that if you don't stretch your paper, you end up with buckling. You see how it's like kind of weird and misshapen on this side. So what we want to do is just kind of give it a spritz. We're just going to kind of smooth it out. If you use water on one side and not the other, what ends up happening is that the water fibers expand on one side, but not on the other side. And that is exactly what happened in this case. Okay, so dry my hands on my pants. And we're going to go and put this back down. Okay. Washi tape does not have a good sticking record when it's wet, so we'll see how well this does. And part of this is just because I didn't work fast enough in my not so humid environment currently. So I am going to get my microfiber cloth and just kind of dry off my board and its surroundings. Okay. Wipe down the tape too. Okay. With that said, we are going to work on some of this. So we have to decide, are we going to continue to use watercolor and a dry brush technique, or are we going to move to gouache? So I do have quite a bit of gouache paint, and I will be using some of it for this piece. And I will be getting that sorted. There we go. And what I'm using is this Arteza 60 color gouache set. This is something that I bought through Amazon, and it was fairly inexpensive. See if I can actually get this to focus. Might be too close. Yeah. Anyways, there we go. So this set was fairly inexpensive on Amazon and has a pretty nice color selection. I don't know if you guys can see this little color map here, but it's got a lot of the classic colors as well as some new and unique colors, as well as some pearlescent and metallic shades. Oh, we're going to stick away from the pearlescent and metallic shades for this, though. Okay. Setting those to the side and digging in to what we need for this. I'm going to get some green shades. So first off, seaweed is a nice shade of green. And each one kind of has like a different, I don't know if you guys can see this, kind of different setting information right there. Come on, focus. Anyways, but pluses and little square. So what that means is each shade has its own light fastness. Kind of says how it'll dry versus how it looks when it's wet, because shades do dry differently. So if you've never used gouache or watercolor before, I would suggest doing swatches of how everything looks prior to using it. And the little square, what that means is how transparent or opaque the paint is. So a filled in square is going to be opaque versus a half square is going to be more transparent. So for this, we want a couple of different shades. So we've got some yellows, purples, and greens going, as well as some blues. So I want some yellows and greens. And I need burnt sienna, which is a nice brown color. And we're actually going to go with a couple of other colors. So I need sky blue, which is a nice muted shade of blue. And I am, of course, going to need white. So we're going to be using titanium white for that. And I am going to be using some violet as well. There are a couple of other things that work pretty well when you're mixing. For instance, scarlet red has a different hue when it dries. It's going to be actually a little bit lighter when it dries. And you'll see it's a little bit transparent. So when mixed with some of these colors, like you'll see the lemon yellow is a little transparent, the scarlet red is a little bit transparent, it can actually adjust the shades and transparencies of the paints we're using, which is quite interesting. So let's get a couple more shades that we'll need. And you'll notice, like, most of this is very muted, whereas, like, what's on here right now is pretty bright. And what we want is that to kind of shine through. And we're going to need a couple more things. Let me dig through my box here. And we are going to need purple, but it's not just violet. So There's a couple of different shades in traditional paint that I do not have in the set that we typically have. I do need burnt umber, so it's a darker brown. And we're going to go with lilac as another purple shade. And I might need another green as well. Let me go back to my greens. And let's go with sap green. It's a nice bright green. And I might need one more blue as well. So we're going to go with Aegean blue, which is a nice dark blue. Okay, now that I've got the shades of what I think I'll need picked out, I can set the box to the side and start setting up the picture. So it's mostly dry, and we're just going to kind of set up our palettes. So first things first, I have to get a palette. And I apologize for any noise that you hear because I have to get into my toolbox, grab it that I use as my palette. So I have got my palette. Yes, it's just a black plate, but I find that it works pretty well for the colors. So let's go ahead and just get some of these going. If you are new to the channel, I stream a little bit of everything. That might be gaming. It might be just talking about random stuff. Recently, I've had kind of a rough mental time, so I have not been streaming as much as I typically would. And, you know, that's kind of depressing to me. I've been kind of depressed. But it is what it is. Sometimes you just have to deal with life and what it gives you. So for this, what I'm going to be using is this flat brush. And this is what we're going to be doing most of our detailing with. And this is just a Royal & Langnickel number 10 flat brush. Fairly basic, and these are meant for acrylics, but I find that they work really well for gouache as well. And I'm just going to open up a couple of things and work outwards. So I am putting white, green, blue, and yellow, and violet, and then we'll go from there. We'll add more colors as needs be. One thing with gouache is you can use it right from the tube, but the best thing is to use a little bit of water because it is a water-based paint, and you want to get it kind of like the consistency of like a thick milk or like a cream. You want it to be thicker than water, thicker than milk, but runnier than this. Like this is very, very thick. So you want to water this down before using it. This is definitely not ideal to use it straight from the tube. Unlike acrylics, which you might find yourself using straight from the tube, that work better that way. And I'll admit, it's been a bit since I painted anything. I haven't really been doing much art, and I kind of want to get back to that. Part of my mission to be healthier, like mental health wise, is to do more artwork because that's something that I really enjoy doing. It's something that I've been doing since I was a kid, and you know, I'm in my 30s now. No shame in that. And can just make you feel more at peace, more at home with yourself. So I'm actually going to use another paintbrush to do my mixing. I could use a palette knife, but I find that it doesn't pick up enough water to like mix my colors the way I need them mixed. And you see, adding a little bit of water definitely makes a difference in consistency. And that this is kind of like the consistency that you want. It's kind of like a thick cream. And Arteza does a pretty good job about like the consistency of their paint. Some paint brands, they right out of the tube or right out of the container, sometimes they can be a bit thick or grainy or lumpy. But most of these paints have had like a pretty consistent quality to them, which is good considering they're not, you know, professional or artist quality. These are kind of like studio quality or cheap, crappy paint. Um, it's not something you typically would use for a masterpiece, but, you know, I'm just getting back into the swing of things, so it doesn't really matter what I use on my painting. After all, I am doing this for me, so no one else. And you'll notice also, once you add water to gouache, the color of the paint also changes. So, like, this blue was much darker out of the tube, and you'll notice that it's much lighter once you add water. And even though their rating system gives like opacity and light fastness, it doesn't address the thickness. Some of these paints are a little bit thicker than others, but in terms of like consistency with, you know, the smoothness of the pigment and how it's blended together, it's pretty good. Another thing you kind of want to do is you know, wipe your brush often when you're using watercolors and gouache. Because, for instance, I didn't wipe my brush before blending this yellow, and you'll see that I've got a bit of green in it. And that's okay, because that's what this is going to be used for anyways, is blending into green. But you really want to make sure that you're getting the most pure color. And, like, if you've got dirty water or a dirty brush, that's going to make a big difference, right? So you'll also want to know that I have 2 pots of water beside me, and one is for rinsing my brushes of the paint, and then one is a fresh pot to dip the brush in and actually blend out my paint or, you know, get water on the painting. Because you don't want to contaminate colors that are going to be separated when you do your painting. And I put my colors a little close together on my palette. And also, I'm taking a little bit longer than I normally would to mix these up because I'm talking to you all. Okay, so I got some colors together and I am just going to go in and start mixing some stuff. Got green, a little bit of titanium white. A little bit of white goes a long way, guys. You don't use too much. And just the littlest bit of purple. And you can see here, as I'm mixing, it gets this lovely, like, almost gray shade. Because green and purple are complementary colors. So we're just going to go in with this and try to define some of our rock area. Oh goodness, I'm even using the wrong brush, guys. 1 second. That was the brush I was going to use for mixing, but not necessarily for painting. And you see this like rough texture, it means I don't have enough paint on my brush. You really want to make sure you get enough paint on your brush before trying to make strokes on your painting. And part of this is that I did not mix up enough paint. I think it's green, it's purple, it's white, and purple. There we go. Make sure it's thoroughly blended. So, what crazy things have happened to you lately? I can say we had an internet outage yesterday. And part of the fun for Verizon Fios being out, it went down for quite a few people. I don't know if anybody actually looked at down detector. But part of the fun is about it being down in my area is that it kind of spawned a community of people who were waiting for the internet to come back up, and they all started a community on Discord. Most of them are local, some of them are gamers, some of them are streamers, and I find it kind of interesting that crappy and horrible circumstances brought us all together into a community. Quite interesting. If you're watching this in the future, yes, obviously the internet came back up, but it was down for a good number of hours last night. Okay. So I have the basis for my rocks there. And I'm just going to go into the other side and do the same thing. Using more sap green, more purple, and more titanium white. And yes, I probably could have used an actual gray, but doing it this way makes a nice, cool violet gray color. And provides some interesting changes and depth to the picture. And the great thing about paintings is they start off one way and they finish a different way. So, where it might look like just a bunch of blobs right now, obviously, it's going to change over time, as is the progression of all things. Oh, let's see. More green is needed. A little bit more water. If the paint starts getting dry, the great thing about gouache is that it, like watercolor, is a water-based paint. And if it starts getting too thick, just add a little bit of water and bring it back. Okay, apply all of these duders over here. Just in case you're like kind of interested in what color palette I'm using. Hopefully you can still see all those. Almost, not quite. But, I mean, you can see most of them. And I know this is looking a bit dark, but remember, gouache lightens as it dries. So it might look dark now, but it's going to look lighter by the time I start adding details. And the other good thing about gouache is it's opaque, mostly. So, like, I can take some of the white and draw in details. I can color on top of this. As long as you don't work the paint a lot, you're actually okay with drawing details on top of a darker shade. So now I kind of want to go in and define this tree. So I'm going to take some brown, a little bit of this gray color that I've made. Probably need a little bit of this sap green. And a little bit more brown here. Okay, and I just kind of want to pull in this tree shape. And you know, shapes are organic. They can change. They are fluid. You don't want to be super stiff with a shape, especially when you're drawing things in nature. And you try not to do things that are repetitive when you're coming in and doing natural shapes like this. You want them to have variation. And be a little bit imperfect. Okay. Now remember I said this is going to actually dry a little bit lighter than what you think it would be by looking at the paint on your palette or on the picture itself. You want to make sure that, you know, you really load up your brush when using paint. As you saw me earlier, I kind of started off a little bit dry. And that can lead to some issues in your painting. And you kind of want to vary your paint strokes if they're going to be visible, because nature is not uniform. So you would expect things to be not uniform when you look at them. Okay. So I am going to let these details kind of dry a bit with the hair dryer. And we're going to work on another portion of it and block in some of these bushy shapes that I've already kind of highlighted with the watercolor. Okay. Let me mute the audio because it is going to be a little bit loud. And we will talk again. Okay, we're back. Again, sorry about that. Keep having to make sure that my hair dryer doesn't cause a lot of noise. While I am deciding what to do for some of these color blocks, I am going to make myself some tea. So if you hear a weird noise in the background, it's just the Instant Pot or Instant Kettle, electric kettle. Might help if I plug it in. Can't really make hot water in an electric kettle if it's not plugged in, y'all. Okay, with our next step, I'm going to come in here and block out some of this stuff. So I want like this bright green, some of the sap green, okay, and I'm going to pull in a little of this yellow. And again, it's going to dry lighter, most likely. Some paints, they actually dry darker, but most of the gouache paints dry lighter. And I am going to block in some of these shapes. Again, if you hear a weird noise in the background, it's the Instant Kettle. Okay. Got the first shape blocked out. Okay. Well, got a little bit of water on my mouse pad, or desk mat, whatever you want to call it. No bueno. Okay. Okay. No color variation in the shadow parts. Okay. There we go. I know that may not look darker, but the shade is slightly different, and it's enough to make an impression of darkness. Oh, my instant kettle has shut off. Guess you know what that means. Means tea time. I am still mixing a little bit of paint, making a slightly more yellowy brown shade. So, let me set that down. And I will get my tea going and we can start back up. So, first things first, let me get my teacup. So, I'm obsessed with Cthulhu, as some of you may know. So, this is my teacup. It is a Hidden Monsters Cthulhu teacup, and you know that light might be a bit bright. Can you see that? I don't know if you can, but lovely octopus in there. Okay, and today's tea of choice, I am gonna go with the Harney and Sons Hot Cinnamon. I don't know if you've ever had it before, but it is delicious and doesn't need any sugar. So that's nice. Highly recommend if you are a cinnamon lover or a tea drinker who has had issues cutting down on sugar, because this tea is like sweet enough to where you don't really need sugar to use it. Very important. Always unplug the electric portion of your electric kettle after it is done making your water. Okay, and that has to brew for 3 to 5 minutes. And while that does, we're going to put in a little bit of arbitrary highlights here. So we want our lighting kind of coming from above and from an easterly direction. So it's going to highlight our bushes in that sort of way. And I know this looks dark, but again, gouache is a medium that you can go back over and modify and make it lighter or darker after the fact because it is an opaque medium. Unlike traditional watercolor where you have to lay on layers and make sure that it's very thin prior to painting. Okay. Tea is making. So this blue is pretty opaque. We don't necessarily want it opaque. Like, obviously, a little bit of transparency is a good thing. But we're going to have some blue up here where it's going to like dapple through these branches. Okay. Got some blue going in there. And I'm going to mix in a little bit of violets and a little bit of this Aegean blue and get like a deeper kind of shaded blue. Add a little water to that. Okay. I'm just going to put this in. And select key areas. The key here is, it doesn't have to be perfect. Right? This is art, and it's something that is open to interpretation. Also, this is something completely from my imagination, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so we've got a good base for our sky going. Sorry about that, how it was in the way. And what I'm going to do is add a bit more of this dark Aegean blue. A little bit of this like brownish green. And I'm just gonna add some more variation to our shadow spots. Right? Okay. And now I'm going to start brightening this up with yellow. I know, it's kind of weird adding purple and blue and green and all in the same mixture. But it's my painting. And I want this nice muted weird color. If you hear a weird noise, that's Ruby, my pupper. Sorry. She likes to make weird noises from time to time, especially when mommy is doing things that don't concern playing with her. So, we got that down, and now I'm going to make a very light muted yellow for this background area. Some of this white, green, and yellow. Might need more white. And more water. So, how is everybody else doing? I know that chat has been a bit quiet. I don't think there's many other people watching, but I don't really care about that. I just care about doing my own thing, and people who come in can come in as they will. Okay. So, we've got our base layers down. I know it looks a bit weird right now. It'll look better later. And specifically, what I want is kind of like this underlighting to come from the tree. So the tree itself is going to be kind of like bright and shining light into this area. Not sure why I want it that way. Just something I decided to do, right? Well, my tea has brewed in my Cthulhu cup. Ooh, throw away my tea bag. And we'll take a bit of a tea break. So, how many of y'all, whether it's on Twitch or YouTube, because it's going on YouTube later, have ever felt hopelessness or things of that nature? I can say that, I've felt that way. Sometimes bad things happen. And we have to get over our own issues in our own time, whether that be with professional help or the help of our loved ones or other things. It's okay to, for instance, take medicine, etc. Give me just a second. The pupper wants out. So I'm going to open this door and again. Go. And throw her outside. You might hear like a banging noise in a moment. Don't worry about it. It's just the dog wanting back in. That's some good tea. Probably not the best idea to have caffeine right before having to go to bed. But I don't care. It's tasty, and yeah. So as this dries, I see some things that I probably do want to tweak. Oh. And we will work on that at a later time because it is getting a bit late. I've been going for about an hour and 30 minutes, and my palette is starting to dry. I don't know if you can see this or not, but like you see how some of these are kind of like matte and not shiny? That is because as gouache dries, it becomes matte versus shiny. So that, you can hear it. I don't know if you can or not, but like that is dried paint on my palette. So with that said, I think we are going to call it a night for now. And I will see all of you next time. I might stream more of this tomorrow, or I might stream some games tomorrow. So, I do have to clean up my area. Let me turn this so you can see. Like, it's a bit dirty. It's a bit dirty. And yeah, we'll do some more later. Thank you, everybody. Have a great, safe, and lovely night or weekend. And I will talk to all of you later. Bye.